right, y'all. So, still trying to dig deeper. And now I'm thinking about, what happens when you post without knowing the why, right? So, yesterday, I told you about, the hollow feeling, posting into the void, into the digital, photo album shoebox situation, and really thinking about what was the point, right? And yeah. Anyway, we got into all that. Watch yesterday's video. Um, and I try to learn from these thoughts, from these mistakes, experiences, whatever you want to call them. And yesterday when I was talking about the hollowness feeling was telling me something, I had to think about, well, what was it telling me? Right? What was it that I was missing? And that thing was the why, right? And in that, so again, trying to dig a little deeper, thinking back to the audience part, right? And really thinking through, the audience couldn't be the fuel, right? We've talked about this. Thank y'all for some who've been commenting about that part. And yeah, I just kind of coming to this conclusion that your audience can't be the fuel of the why, right? You kind of have to make it the byproduct. And by that, it's so funny too. Goodness, oh my goodness, I was driving a client to an appointment the other day, and we were literally talking about alternative fuels for cars, and he had mentioned, this guy who, this is obviously like years ago, had created a vehicle that could run on water, went to a conference, disappeared. Anyway, he was a bit of a conspiracist, but he was fun to talk to. And we were talking about how, like, he said, and I don't know if this is true, I have not fact checked this, but he was mentioning that, like, diesel is a byproduct of, is it gasoline or propane? And one of those is also, there's a byproduct of diesel, but yet all the byproducts cost more than the, anyway, we'll see if that's my one side quest of the day. I kept that one real short. Anyway, but for posting on social media, maybe particularly YouTube, since that's where we're at, thinking about our audience and that it cannot be what fuels us. It needs to be the byproduct of the why. Because yeah, if you are posting for the audience, if you're posting so that people will show up and that other people will care, that they will validate you or what you're doing, that's why you see people burn out. If the audience is the fuel, the burnout will happen. Okay, the motor starts. What is it? I'm saying fogging up. Lord, that's not the word I want. Smoking. When your oil ain't right in it, it's overheating. It's a no-go. It's a burnout. So the audience, I mentioned yesterday how, like, I wasn't just doing like the audience. I think at some point I thought that the comments and the likes, before that was really even like a really big thing, was what part of maybe what would keep me going, but again, it's like the maintenance, that's not the fuel. It needs to be a byproduct. Yeah. And so really all the audience is there to do, they can let you know that they're watching. They can let you know, maybe give you some feedback, on video ideas or things like that. But you know, watching, it's, I don't want to say it's not caring, like they don't care, like your audience, usually your audience cares about you, like that's why they keep watching you, right? But they care about your why. Your why shows through if you have it, and if you don't, that's when you start getting less engagement. I don't know what to say. That's tit for tat there. So now there is something to be said about, you know, because there's plenty of people who come on and say, I was just trying something, right? Just throwing something into the ether and see if an echolocation wavelength would come back, you know? Oh, y'all, I have too much fun with myself. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because honestly, in some ways, I admire those people because they're doing something, right? It kind of goes back to, I don't know if anyone else kind of heard this story analogy, but like, if you've heard of like the whole growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So here's my second side quest, y'all. Kind of going into that realm of like, the smart kids were the ones getting the A's, and your hard workers were maybe more so getting C's. But when they became adults, the hard workers were at least doing something, right? They weren't overthinking. They weren't trying to over rationalize the thing. They just did it. And if they made a mistake, they learned from it and kept going, right? And so that's why you do see some people who they are very successful without going to college, or, you know, kind of other things through education, because they learned from experience. The experience was their education, because they did and they learned. Key conclusion there, like, you know, you can't just do and not learn. You're not going to go anywhere. But if you're doing and you're trying and you don't let that stop you, and you keep going, and you learn from it to not make the same mistake, yeah, you can exponentially grow. Absolutely. But even for a lot of those people, they had a why behind why they kept going, right? Like, why did they keep going? There was a reason. There was something more that they were like, they were willing to put ego aside to learn the lesson. That needs to go on a t-shirt. Okay. So anyway, you don't, I think the core to this aspect of the story, the main quest, is that you don't have to have everything figured out, right? That's why I'm back. I don't have everything figured out. My whole spiel right now is I'm in the messy middle of it. So I don't think having a why equates to having it all figured out, right? That's not the equation there. I think that you can have a why, and then you put yourself out there to see what happens with that, right? See what sticks in that way. And I think that's where the audience starts becoming the byproduct. Y'all see where I'm going with that? Y'all see the connection? Y'all staying with me? Now, there's another side of this. I want to be careful not to, I'm not anti-audience. That would be crazy to be on YouTube and be anti-audience. I want an audience, right? But I don't want an audience. I don't want just people watching. I want to build a community at some point. Like I want us to be in community and conversation. Yes, I want us to be in conversation. I want us to talk to each other. Um, I feel like I have a certain lens that, I view the world and can see the world and figure out the world through. And I think other people have, it may be a different lens. It may not be these glasses. It might not be this prescription. It might not be this frame. But if you are or not a eyeglass wearer, you still see the world in a certain way based on your experiences and different things. So I think that's an aspect that we bring a unique, perspective with too. Um, and so I want to be in conversation with people who maybe I help them understand something because of the way that I see things. I'm not, I won't say I've never been. I try to never say never. But it has been a long time since I've felt like I just need people to like agree with me, I'd rather have the exploratory conversation about things, and see the different viewpoints. And at the end of the day, we don't have to say, oh yeah, I agree with that. That was a great conversation. We can have a great conversation without agreeing with each other. So I don't want my community to just be an echo chamber. I want there to be a true conversation. But I also know that a conversation can't happen without common language. We kind of have to have and I mean that in like the literal and figurative way, right? So we need common language of, you know, speaking to your experiences and different things like that. Maybe we do share some similarities, and that's why you keep coming back, or that's why I keep going back to some of the same YouTubers that I watch, is because either something they said, their lens, who they are, their why, is an aspect of of this shared language that we can kind of speak together, and then we can be in conversation and thus in community with each other. And so I think that's where knowing what you're saying first helps. And in that, it stems from the why. If the why is the roots, knowing what you're going to say is the trunk, and then your byproduct of the leaves is your audience and other things. And then fruit can come later. We can talk about that in a different video. But you see how, like, you can show up as you are. You can show up in the messy middle. You can show up just throwing things into the void. But if you have that foundation of the why first, it's going to be a much stabler situation. And then you don't just have audience, or at least I don't just want audience. I want community. I want us to be in community and be in conversation with each other. I don't want it to just be noise. Now listen, y'all, I do have, some of these videos have been short, but I have the gift of gab. I can keep talking. I can keep going. But I don't want it to just be noise. I've gotten over, while I can do small talk, and I don't mind it to an extent for a very short period of time, you see, we already in week 2, we going deeper. Like, let's get into some conversation and not just the placating. Let's not do that. I'm getting very distracted by my earrings. It's fine. Is that technically a third side quest? Maybe. So yeah, just in thinking about the audience, the likes, and just letting that sit, letting that ruminate a little bit. Because it is kind of crazy how before people were getting, I guess monetized is the word I want to use here, for likes, and now we're past that era. It's kind of crazy to me sometimes when I do think about it, think back to it, that this idea of just clicking that heart button, or, you know, having a comment made us feel validated. You know, it made us feel like someone was paying attention. And how much we want that. I don't know which way I want to go with that part, but there's something to that, right? Because it became monetized. You know, businesses at one point were all about, well, how many likes, follows you got, you know, and then later they started thinking more about the engagement pieces. What does engagement actually look like? And I think we're even beyond that in some ways. But yeah, back then, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I really thought the likes were going to keep me going, but obviously they didn't. They couldn't. That wasn't it. Because just like the hollowness and the void, the storage system couldn't give me a why. The likes can't either. It's not where the why comes from. And in some ways, and I think I mentioned this last week too, in some ways I am glad that it happened how it happened, because I would have hated, and I think I saw this too at some point, and I think it's what's kept me from posting at one point. I think we all saw the era in social media of, and you still see it somewhat now, but there was, I don't even know what bracket of years, if I were to say from this year to this year, but there was definitely that point in time when it was the, if you were a content creator, you know, yes, you had your affiliate links and all, you know, different things, but it was like, and then you only did it to produce content. It wasn't part of your life, right? We know those type of content creators that they literally just create the life of a content creator to post about being a content creator, right? That kind of cyclical situation. And we all saw the hollowness in it, right? Like there was an aspect of the glitz and glam that drew us in. There was an aspect of really good video editing that drew us in. There was the aspects of really good hooks that drew us in, right? And now I think some of that's being parsed and taken apart. And you still have some people who, you know, still they do the thing, and that's how they get their brand deals. And hey, make you money. But I think also the audience can see through it. We know what to look for now, and that's why this kind of more push for authenticity has been happening more recently. But yeah, before AI and stuff, there was like this bracket of time where it was like the vlogging and everything was, it wasn't someone's like real life, it was the curated life to make the content. And I'm talking about that because I'm trying to get to the point of like, I'm glad that I stopped when I felt the hollowness, because I could have kept going and pushed through the hollowness, but I think at some point then it would have been fake, right? It wouldn't have been real. And that the likes could have kept me going through the hollowness. And that just, God, even just saying that sounds depressing. Yeah. So I am glad that I paid attention to the hollowness, um, in a way, because it prevented me from living in the void with no rope to come out of. Um, yeah, because I wouldn't have wanted that. I wouldn't have wanted to be in the noise. I want community. All right. Question of the day. Are you building an audience, or are you trying to build community? Are you trying to are you creating noise, or are you creating a conversation? What is the difference for you?